You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. Glad you have joined me on this. Well, it's a Monday morning when I'm recording this, so welcome to Monday morning. I hope you've sat down, gotten your journal open, and began to plan for the week and put some objectives that you can accomplish. That's what you should be doing. Listen, today our conversation is going to be about limited liability companies. Let's get to it.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
Well, it's Monday. We have a whole bunch of things happening today in the news. We're going to get to the LLCs in just a few seconds here, but today we have that Inspector General report coming out on the FISA abuse. Let's see what that says. Now listen, all of you, be independent in your thinking, okay? Because get a copy of the FISA report when it comes out, read it through, turn off the news. Don't listen to this spin because they are going to spin, and they're going to spin and spin and spin until your head goes absolutely nutso. But be independent and really study what that report is really saying. Then the other issue we have is we have this impeachment hearing continuing on today in the Judiciary Committee. I really feel personally this is a coup. This is a takeover. And Americans need to be very concerned about what's going on. So let's talk about LLCs. Well, LLC, what does it stand for? Limited Liability Company. Limited Liability Company. And it's a good formation if you're going to have partners and want to have some asset protection and everything else. But an LLC has some failures too, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But at the very beginning of this, we're going to talk about how an LLC is formed and what everything means. Because I know that a lot of you form an LLC, but then you don't look at your documents anymore. I know, because I have formed so many LLCs for clients, and they don't even open up their books anymore. They don't even look to see exactly how the LLC is supposed to be managed. So we're going to start by reviewing the key components of an LLC operating agreement. That's the most important document that you have, because that outlines what the responsibilities of the LLC members are. The operating agreement is meant to outline each partner's ownership stake as well as their duties as founding members. I do a lot of mediation work, and when I have partners or operators of an LLC come before me because they're having a conflict, it's because they have never sat down and identified who's responsible for what. Everybody, as soon as they do the LLC, they all go off into a whole bunch of different directions and start doing whatever they want to do. And so then they have to come before me, and we have to mediate it, and we have to get them back on track of where they need to be. So you need to follow the exact formula. I take that back. You don't need to follow the exact formula, but you have to be very close, okay? Because that operating agreement is your Bible to how you need to operate the LLC, especially when it comes to identifying who's responsible for what. So you'll need to address the following items in the operating agreement, okay? The organization. Why is the company being created? And who is creating it? This section of the operating agreement will detail the members of the LLC as well as the structure of ownership. In other words, what percentage of ownership will each member have? Will some be managing, or will some be silent? Or are they working within the company, and what is their duties going to be? You need to know what that's going to be. And then you need to know the management and voting rights. This section of the operating agreement will detail how the company is managed. For example, there may be owners of the LLC who don't take an active role in managing business day to day. Here you're also going to detail the voting rights of each of the owners of the LLC and how voting works and what you're going to be voting on, and the meetings and everything else that you will be having with each other. And then the funding and capital investments. Who is contributing capital to the LLC? This section will also detail how money would be raised for the LLC in the future, because you're going to put that within the operating agreement. Profit and loss distribution. This section will detail how and when profits and losses will be distributed to the LLC members, including money and other company assets. Then you need to look at the operational requirements. This section will detail how the company will operate, including the responsibilities of each member. It may also assign authority or restrictions for certain activities, like check signing, management, who's going to have the day-to-day operational controls of the LLC, of the business. I tell you, this is where so many people get stuck, because they forgot to identify the responsibilities. And I've said this time and time and time again, especially in my mediation podcast, as you need to know who's going to do what. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting before me and we're going to be mediating out this issue between the partners or the owners of the LLC. So you need to know the responsibilities. Then you need to look at the process for adding or removing members. People come and go, or people get discouraged and they don't want to be a participant in anymore. So you need to know how to change your membership structure by adding or removing members. How will you approach it? Especially if they've put in money. How are you going to distribute or return or whatever you're going to do with that money? So then you have to look at the dissolution and or LLC endgame. This section of the operating agreement will explain under which conditions the LLC can be dissolved, and sometimes the endgame plan for the company. Not all LLCs live on. There are some real estate LLCs that go in, they buy, they develop, they sell off the units, and then the LLC's done with. Everything's been completed in that LLC. Some LLCs last a long, long time. So you need to identify that part of the structure of your LLC or your business. Now, there are some very common points of failure of an LLC. There are several ways your LLC operating agreement can go very, very wrong. But these items that we're going to talk about are the most common reasons for failure. There are other reasons also, but these are the most common. 1, missing sections of the operating agreement. Skipping a section may be convenient when drafting your agreement, but it could end up hurting you in the long run. For example, if you envision a future where your LLC members remain consistent forever, you may avoid drafting a section or adding or removing members. However, you'll regret missing it when the need arises, because if you don't know how to remove or add members, you could destroy the whole legality of the LLC. Ambiguity. I hate that word because it's so hard to pronounce. But sometimes members write sections ambiguously intentionally to provide more wiggle room for the future. In other words, they want to kind of shake it up a little bit in case they want to have an out or an in. However, ambiguity opens the door for too many potential exploitations. If you don't concretely define the intentions of the LLC, it may be used against you. And that's very sneaky within partners sometimes. Then the loopholes. Now, I don't like loopholes. I always think that every agreement should be very clean. But legal loopholes are always a potential problem. If you aren't careful, you could establish a section that could be manipulated for someone else's gain. I've seen this happen so many times, where you have tricky LLC members or the people who are trying to put it together. And I'm telling you right now, those are the type of individuals that usually end up in my mediation between partners in looking at the LLC agreement. Then you have stagnation. The circumstances dictating your business's operations are certainly going to change, especially if your business continues operating for years and years and years. It keeps on going on as an operating business. You need to update the operating agreement periodically, typically at least once a year, or the terms you created initially will no longer be relevant. Now, I want to mention one other thing, and that is you should really be keeping minutes to every meeting that you have. When you form a new banking relationship, who are going to be the signers on it? What are the limits that a LLC member can sign, or the managing LLC member can sign? What are the investment possibilities? Can he put the money out for investments? And what are the rules for that? And then there's the reporting. Sometimes reporting of the tax return is waylaid because they haven't kept good financial records of the LLC. They haven't kept good accounting records. So all of a sudden at the end of the year, when the LLC is ready to report to the Internal Revenue Service, they have no financial records because they haven't kept any for the whole year. So you need to be very wise, and you need to be very focused on being in compliance with financial reporting and tax reporting. And then if you start using this LLC for personal use at some point in time, the LLC could probably come in, not the LLC, but the Internal Revenue Service could probably come in and say, hey, I don't believe that you're an ongoing business. I don't think you're really trying at your business. Because for the last 4 and 5 and 6 years, you've operated at a loss. Now, I know a lot of you form these LLCs because you want to have a loss on your tax return, that you think it helps you. But the Internal Revenue Service at some point in time begins to look at your losses. Is it a viable ongoing business, or is it a hobby? Those questions get asked by the Internal Revenue Service almost every single day on partnerships, on LLCs, on corporations. Remember, you're not supposed to be having a company or forming a business to operate as a loss for the remainder of its life. You're supposed to be focused on trying to make it into a profitable business. And if you're not doing that, and if you're just sitting by the wayside making up numbers at the end of the year so that you can have a loss, the Internal Revenue Service will come in at some point in time and make changes. And you're not going to like those changes because you're going to end up owing a lot of taxes. I've even seen them shut down an LLC and put everything over to your personal income tax return. I've seen them do that with partnerships. I've seen them do that with corporations. Because you have forgotten why you started a business. So you need to rechange your thinking process when you have an LLC. One, you need to understand the operating agreement, and you need to be up on top of what the operating statement says on how you're supposed to operate that business. And all the LLC members should be knowledgeable on the operating agreement. That's why I always bring in my LLCs, the whole members, all the members. And if we can't get them into the office, get them onto a conference call, and we go over the operating agreement and say exactly what it means and what's going to happen and what their responsibilities are. Because I don't want to see you later on back in my office and we're mediating between the various partners. Gosh, I remember one time I had 9 partners in my boardroom going over the operating agreement and how to dissolve or remove them from the LLC. So it happens, and you need to be on top and understand what your operating agreement says. If you guys have any questions, listen, send me a text, 818-252-5682. If you have a question on your LLC or your corporation, just send it in to me. I work on these every single day, not just in mediation, but also in the tax side and the formation side of these LLCs with clients. Send me a text, 818-252-5682, and I will try and answer your question somehow, okay? If you're talking about legalities or the law, I can't advise you, but if you want to talk about the taxation and the formation of it, I advise you on that. Everybody go out and have a great day. Remember, be independent in your thinking. Do not listen to politicians. Read the documents before you listen to politicians. I hate to listen to politicians. I guess what it boils down to is I'm really tired of all the spin. My gosh, if you watch one channel on the news, you get a whole bunch of spin. If you listen to another channel, you get a different set of spin. And then when you listen to politicians, each side has their own spin. That's why I think it's very important. And I do this all the time, especially when it has to deal with legislation that's going through the Congress. And I get updates every single day, especially from the Ways and Means Committee, because it affects business and it affects taxation on businesses. So I read them very carefully. I read the bills that are going through because I want to have my own opinion. We have associations that I'm a member of, but I don't know what they're looking at. I have no idea what they're looking at because they're supposed to be heavy on following the legislation of these bills going through Congress on taxation and business. So I decided, well, you know what? The only way I'm going to know is if I read them myself. And it doesn't take that long to read these bills. Now, if you're getting into bills like the health care or the Tax Reform Act, those were heavy-duty reading. And you really had to read them because they were thousands of pages long. And so you had to read them very carefully or attack sections of them that deals with your line of business and how it is going to affect you. So I encourage every single one of you, take time to get involved and read some of this stuff. It's really great reading at night when you're trying to go to sleep. Forget about sleeping medication. If you read an HR bill from the Congress, it's going to be the same as a sleeping medication. I'm telling you, it works wonders for me. Anyway, everybody go out and have a great day. Stay informed. Study your business and tax rules of an LLC or any business entity that you have. And start making it into a profitable business. That's what we want to see. Talk with you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.